What up? Welcome to Ralph Reads, brought to you by TURN, the United Ronin Networks. My name is Ralph Anthony Garcia, also known as R4. The legal, the loyal, the regal, the royal, Ronin Ralph, your master of ceremonies. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Tell a friend to tune in to TURN, the United Ronin Networks. We are Ronin. On tonight's edition of Ralph Reads, Vol.5, all the way live with The Gentleman Pimp, written by Andrew Stonewall Jackson. Alright, it's Vol.5. Time to see what's next. Let the reading commence. Chapter 11. Marie had a habit of f***ing with me late at night out in the streets because she knew I was on paper and couldn't stand to be picked up for cracking her head. I got her off my ass by telling her that I put Corrie on her if she ever put me through any more changes, and I'd make her kick her big funky ass. This made her ice f***ing with me, and since she knew Corrie wouldn't work without having her blade on her, she knew it was wise to get off my ass. I had Corrie 3 times in my life, once in Detroit and twice in New York. And I'll bet I bought her 800 blades during the times I had her. Most of the times was because we left the house and forgot a blade, and I didn't want to go back just to get it, so I'd buy one along the way for her. One night, I came by the edge looking for her, and I was told the nearest words any cat with a could hear, and that was, "She's busy." Those 2 words are priceless to a pimp. It means money is being made. And my dear reader, as you read this book, you shall see just what a money-making little bitch Corrie was. Or perhaps I should have said is. Although she is what you might think of as being old, but bear in mind, she is like rare vintage wine. She has mellowed with age and is as lovely as ever. I know. I saw her 2 weeks ago in the Apple. While sitting in the car waiting on my prize pluck, I dug her step out of a small hotel on Bush with a trick tagging behind her after a good drink out of her tasty ass. After she had dropped him at the bar, she came to me and I said, "Hi, Tidbit. How's everything going?"
"Might be good for some of the mud kickers, but I find it nothing with a big N."
"Baby," I said, "everything's fine for us both. Sweetheart, I got things worked out for you to get down at some of the top hotels in Detroit. I've already tightened you with all the right bellboys, and you can start work out of one of them tomorrow night. And from that one, you will go in the rest of them one by one till you've made them all. And Corrie, with your class and swiftness, you can cave the bellboys and save the 4 out of 10, the 8 out of 20, the 12 out of 30, and etc. Damn near every bellboy in Detroit wanna be pimps anyway, so all you gotta do is make 'em all think you're their rib." Well, Corrie went to work in one of the small hotels, and in them all, she spent a year working hotels and the bellboys too. When the end of the hotel thing came, I believe she was back in the hotel where she started. When I say the end, I mean the places got hot. The vice started to bust a lot of girls, and a great many bellboys got pandering raps and ended up in Jackson doing that 20-year thing. One of them is now on the West Coast writing on a black-owned newspaper. I was lucky Corrie had missed the big crackdown, so I put her on her old edge. She knocked them dead wherever she worked. Most of the tricks were black, and a girl like Carrie was a true treat to him. A black man is deaf on a girl, and most black tricks can really hurt a girl if she isn't wise to him, and Carrie was really hip to handling a black with his his house and his ability to on after he's walls his mouth. Yeah, this kind of shit can wear out a girl before her time. But like I told you, Carrie was hip to a man's every move, and none could get by her. A pal of mine, who I'll call Jim, had a girl working in the house in Mansfield, Ohio, when I got hip to it by making the runs with him. I got close to the land prop and was able to get Carrie a shot at the house. The house was a 50-50 place, and all the tricks were black. It was because of my start in that house that I was able to get her into damn near every town in Ohio. She worked out of Akron, Canton, Cincinnati, Lima, Dayton, Fostoria, Hamilton, just to name a few. And I moved to Cleveland to be near her, and I was still getting the butts from the fairy tale in Detroit. And believe me, every dime that I got from both girls was running in my arms and cocaine, and I'd have to come off it with horse. Then Carrie received word from her mother that her big brother was in a jam in New York. She was close to all her people, so I could dig her wanting to go to New York and see what she could do for her brother. When I got to Lima, she told me about it, and I gave her the green light. I hit on her if she had enough bread to make the trip, and she said she had the 7 bills for me and asked me if it was cool with me, it would be enough. I gave her 3 bills, which made her have an even grand. I told the land prop when she returned, she will be coming back to Detroit. So we had a taste, and I helped my girl pack her things and put what she wasn't going to take in the trunk of the car. I took her to the station and sent her on the trail for the apple. We kissed and we split, going different ways. She was going to the Bronx, and I was going back to Detroit. When I returned to Detroit, I told no one about Carrie going to New York. Instead, I just returned as I always did after checking my trap. I had damn near fired Marie, since Carrie had enriched my life so famously. Marie and I only saw each other when we happened to run into one another, and that wasn't too often. I was busy towing with Lady Christine every time I had the chips to blow. I even got a room where it was sold, and it wasn't a big thing for me to blow as much as $2,000 on a cocaine set. But what I didn't know was that I was getting hooked on the horse that I was using to come off the cocaine. All of my so-called pals were telling her that I was a drug addict in hopes that they could steal her for themselves. The one thing that was right in what they were saying was that I did have a habit, and I was the one that didn't know it. I didn't know the feeling of being sick till I got to the apple, 'cause I had been using cocaine every day and using horse every day. So you can understand how I didn't know I was hooked. The year this was happening was 1946, and I had been fucking around since 1941. My man Chuck soon caught Marie, and I knew it wouldn't last 'cause he was a that was a pimp. He thought she was a top-notch girl just because I had her. Marie had Chuck just to drag me, but what she didn't know was I was a that thought nothing of a bitch, and I was the one that split. I gave Chuck a month to be with her or less because I knew Chuck was really a pimp and he thought she was a money getter when I had her. But he didn't know the bitch was a true fairy tale, and I was waiting on him to come into me about her. After close to a month, my man Chuck had left Marie and jived me a long time about her. He came to me one day and said,
"Damn, man, you mean that big red bitch was like she is now when you had her? Baby, if she was, it sure makes you a monkey-ass for having a bitch that was flying under phony colors."
"Yeah, I gotta confess," I said, She was the same dizzy, simple, stupid, monkey-ass shit. I knew when you copped her, you wasn't gonna keep her long. In fact, baby doll, I made book on it. After Chuck and me had our kicks about Marie, I remembered I hadn't given my brother's girl his message 'cause I hadn't seen her. The one night at one of them pimp parties, I met the Lord, who was and who still is one of the top pimps, and who had a habit when he went to prison, and who hasn't used any horse since he's been out, and that's been 7 years, give or take a year. He can sit longer than anybody I know on a cocaine set like he was doing this night. I never will forget the day when him and another pal were rapping about whose car was the heaviest. My man, the Lord, had a Cadillac, and the other cat had a Buick convertible, both the same year. While they were outside rapping about it, I went into the bar to try another pluck at a real choice waitress. As I made my move in on her, she said,
"Ain't but one man I give my money to, and that's the Lord."
After I come to learn that I couldn't get her, I went outside where I left the Lord. The Lord had lost the bet. The Buick was the heaviest. I walked up to his car and said, "Lord, baby, while you out here bullshitting about the size of your car, there's Dream in the bar that says if she gets in the streets, you are the only man it will be for. So yo, Big Daddy, go in there and start getting that bread she's gonna give you. With this bitch, Lord, all you gotta do is find her an edge to gig on. She's already hip to everything about life, and this bitch is insane about you. I've been to her mama's pad trying to cop her, but all I got was the Lord in every word. So Lord, get the bitch and start selling her that dick. All you gotta do is hit, and I'll make book. The little tidbit is yours." Well, the Lord did as I told him, and things turned out like I told him they would. In fact, she was with him for close to 10 years. When Carrie got back to Detroit from New York, I had to watch myself because my arms were really marked up from running cocaine, and God knows I didn't want her to dig 'em. There was nothing she could do for her brother but get him out on bond. The beef couldn't be fixed because it had drew too much of a smell in the New York papers. I put her to work on the same edge on Hastings Street and fixed it where she could take her dates to a pal's pad to turn 'em. He's a big man in Detroit now, but then I always called him the youngest land drop in the city of Detroit. And at that time, he had 2 ribs himself working on the same corner. But like I said, he's a real big man now, but he was, and still is, my righteous mellow fellow. A lot of girls use this pad with their tricks, and him having 2 girls himself, well, you know how long his bread was when you add the cocaine to it. Yeah, he was selling cocaine also, but he, like everybody else, has gone to prison. He had to do a dime, 10 years for the government. His first week home, he had an El Dorado Cadillac and was dealing in drugs. But now, he's a big, rich businessman, and I love him. You know I hadn't given my brother's girl his message because I hadn't ran into her on the street as yet. But tonight was the night a party was being given at her pad, and all the players were going to be there. Willie's girl's husband had killed a deer, and it was going to be a party with all the town's pimps and players there, popping up their bread on their deer dinners. Cocaine, boo, crap games, poker games, and all kind of drinks. The Lord, Bump, Derby, my man whose rib that I had a part of, were there, just to name a few. I stopped by Chuck's to see if he was going, and he said he'd go as soon as he dropped his girl off at work. I got in the car after speaking to her, and we rode off. When he set her out of the car, he said,
"Baby, try not to show home with less than $50. You know how bad we need it."
He kissed her and drove off. After we had moved a few blocks, I said, "Say, man, that was real sucker talk. What do you mean sucker talk? He cracked. Just what I said, man. 18-karat sucker talk. Man, has this been your claim to fame all the time?
Look, clown,
He cracked.
I don't dig where you coming from.
I said. I'm talking about those last words you said to your woman when she got out of the car.
Man,
He said.
I told her not to bring her ass home with less than 50 bills. Now what's so sucker about that?
What's wrong with it? Those were words of a simp, not a pimp. I'm gonna hip you to why I said it was a fool's rap. And keep in mind that I said it's what I think. And baby, I don't have to be right. Look, Chuck, when you told her not to be home with less than $50, you put a maximum on the cakes you want. Now, you might think that's how it goes, but I think it was bogue. Now, to me, I feel there is no maximum on the money a bitch should make. Now read me, Chuck. She's a thief in the streets and just might run down on a real live one anytime. Now suppose she takes off a 5-bill sting and you already told her 50 is righteous. Why, this will give her $4.50 to toy with. Chuck, baby, she could slip and slide 5 nights and peel you your 50 a night, or the bitch could give Handy Andy the biggest end of it. Now, don't get me wrong. I ain't saying she's yarding, but we both know she could very well be kicking the gong around. Daddy, there's a right way and there's a wrong way to do anything. And I think your move tonight was the wrong way. Now, old dude, if you could look at me and tell me to my face that I'm wrong, I'll kiss your black in Kennedy Square during rush hour. You see, baby, he who thinks in terms of catching mice will never catch lions. Just keep that in mind.
Damn, man,
He cracked.
I can't fight you on that because you're dead right. Gee, baby, you went to Jackson. You sure got your coat pulled to a whole lot of shit.
You can get that Jackson shit out of your mind, I said. I didn't learn nothing up there about life. What I just ran to you, I got hip to when I was 17 on Napoleon and Hastings, and I was driving for my man. Sweetheart, while I was on the corner with all the old heads, I was looking, listening, and taping all that I heard and all that I saw. It was then that Chuck said,
Look, Stoney, you might have the edge on me since you were with the old heads while you were a kid, and since we were both arrested by the desire to be 2 of the youngest pimps in Detroit. Man, why don't we kick our Mac and wisdom around and see what we come up with?
Sounds righteous with me, I said. And Chuck, honey, since there's a party happening at my brother's ribs pad, let's move that way and rap till we get there. Go on, Chuck, I said. You start the ball rolling. I'd like to hear some more of that monkey-ass style of yours. He iced that by saying,
Since you caught me off base with my woman, I feel you should kick it off.
Okay, Mark, I said. Drive on to the party and let your teacher bend your ear. When you feel that I'm bogue or off base, feel free to step in on me. Righteous? Baby, we both know a lot of that's living a fiction life. That throw parties every week that last 3 days. We call them pimp sets now. But at one time, they were called rent parties. Or a cat that has a crap joint, or 2 cats like us, we can steal if we gotta. Yep, Chuck, for a fellow to be a true pimp, he has gotta be a that doesn't know a damn thing about making a living on his own. Daddy, when a genuine pimp starts to fail, he fails fast. Because he don't know a damn thing about keeping himself going. But you and me, we should start catching it bad. We can keep up our front because we can steal. And Daddy, if we go to prison, we will be in top-notch fix when we go and in top-notch fix when we return. I got to running off at the jib and still had a lot more I could have said when we pulled up in front of the pad where the party was. When we entered, the party was well underway. Most of the Major League Mac men were there, drinking, blowing, and kicking. After speaking to Huck, Bump, and the Lord, I hit on Bump, where the lady was. He said,
Man, she all over the house.
I then told him I wasn't talking about cocaine. I was talking about my brother's rib. He then told me she was in the kitchen serving the deer. I asked Chuck if he wanted a deer dinner, and he said yeah. The party was indeed in order. The girl with the boss cocaine bag was on the set, and there was plenty Christine in different spots around the house. A lot of outlaw girls were there, and I felt I'd be able to pluck off one of them. And from different hangouts in Detroit were there, and all had the same idea about the outlaws that was on the set. Me and Chuck ordered a drink and was given a toot of the girl.
Hi, Belle. How have you been? Long time no see.
Hello, Stonewall. Happy to see you home, and I'm sorry about Willie. Really sorry.
Yeah, I said.
I was drunk about Willie, and I know it hurt you as much as it did me. Belle, baby, fix 2 dinners, and I'll tell you the message Willie sent to you.
While she fixed the dinners, I went on to say that the message was in the form of a poem, and I liked it so much I read it enough to damn near learn it by heart. After giving her the message, I dug a few tears in her eyes when she gave me the 2 dinners that I ordered.
Well, sweetheart, those were Willie's last words to you. What you think of them?
She was too full to speak. She just gave me the dinners and wiped the tears from her eyes. As I walked back up front where the mob was, I had to walk through a tight hallway that looked like a railroad car. It was long enough to have 2 bedrooms, one on each side. When I reached the halfway mark, her husband stepped out of one of the bedrooms with the look of death in his eyes and with the same gun that he had killed that deer with. As I stood there with the barrel of that gun against my chin and with the 2 dinners in my hands, I swear I've never been quite that shook up before in my life. My dear reader, I was scared half to death. I had no idea what this was all about until he said,
Willie, what the hell are you doing in my house? Again, I told you not to never set foot in my fucking home.
With the gun pressed against my neck, I found it hard to say,
Man, I ain't Willie. I'm his brother Stonewall. So you never told me to stay free of here. Willie is dead. He died in the joint.
Bullshit. I know you're Willie, and I know who you came here to see. And man, I gotta kill you because of the nerve you got. And boy, oh boy, do you have nerve.
I knew close to all the cats that were at the party, and all of them knew I was Stonewall, and my brother Willie was dead. I didn't want to call Chuck to tell him who I was because we came in together. So I called Bump and said,
Bump, baby, come on and tell him who I am. He really plans on killing me. Oh, Willie,
Bump cracked.
The man knows who you are. Damn, man,
I said with grim bitterness.
This ain't no time to crack wise. This man got his gun, and he is as serious as a motherfucker with cancer. And you're gonna bullshit at a time like this? Tell him he is wrong, Bump. Tell him who I am, Bump.
My man Chuck told Bump to tell him who I was. The Lord told him that I was not Willie and that Willie had died in prison. And then all the fellows hipped him that I was Stonewall. But this creep, Bump, it made the second time I found out he was a initial that wanted to see me get hurt. While late, he said,
Put the gun down. He ain't Willie. He's his brother Stonewall.
I knew Bump and him were real tight, but I didn't know just how tight they were till he relaxed the gun after Bump told him what all the other fellows had told him. Still, however, he told me to get out of his house and not to ever show back. He told me he'd blow my head off if I ever in life came back into his home. I know Bump ain't kosher with me at all, and God knows I really don't know why. Later in this book, you'll read where Bump and me have another sort of run-in. But this one I can halfway understand because damn near every pimp has played on his girl at one time or another. I put the 2 dinners on the cocaine table, and as I did, I looked at Bump real grim and real bitter, and me and Chuck split. Once in the street, I said to Chuck,
Man, oh man, what did you think about that? And how about that nigga Bump? Damn, a rifle in my mouth and him shucking around like that. Chuck, he ain't kosher. I don't know why or what it is, but I do know he ain't right with me.
We drove off, not saying much to each other. We stopped at his pad and took us a fat fix, and I went home. Soon after that, I got a girl from a guy named Barry. And if you get a girl from a guy, that's a pretty good pimp. And if you get a girl from a guy that's a pretty good pimp, it means the girl is indeed a good girl. The girl I'll call Satin Doll. I had her during the time I had Corrie, but at that time, I was getting backdoor stuff. But now, she was 100% my rib. I was still blowing all the bread on cocaine and horse and living like there wasn't a tomorrow. There was never enough chips, no matter how much I was getting. Then one day, my man Chuck was found dead in his apartment. His death can prove just what Joe Chink can do to the fool that starts to f with him in the first place. When I say Joe Chink, I'm talking about heroin or any other kind of narcotic. You can take it from me, because I know I've had a habit for close to 30 years. Joe Chink is by far a cruel, cold-blooded motherfucker who will cause you to rip and run damn near every day of your life. And after you've did all the ripping and running, you end up with nothing but a fix. You see, some men and women have the habit, and some the habit have. But before I allow a habit to have me, I'd go to prison. Now dig this. My man Chuck had 3 girls, and he had 5 bills in his kick when he stole what turned out to be his death fix. Now here's a blow-by-blow on just how he came to die from a hot shot. Chuck had a real plush apartment in one of the terraces on Brush near Wilkins. It was there when he was found dead by one of his girls. You see, there was a dealing drugs, and this guy had what dope fiends called the bomb. This stuff was his personal dope, and nobody could buy any of it. The stuff was so good till Chuck had been beating him for it whenever he had the chance. The guy got fed up being beat all the time, so he fixed up a hot shot for the unknown thief to steal. Chuck stole the poison and went home to run it. He ran it all right, and when his rib found him dead, he had turned blue in color, and there wasn't but one empty cap found on the kitchen table. Yeah, it was like I told him. He was a thief, and the larceny in his heart ended the life of what could have been a great pimp. And my dear reader, this was the hang-up of us both. But I consider myself lucky. I've made it to be 50 years old and write a book about those that didn't make it to be 25. Later in this book, you'll find a whole chapter about the cold-blooded Mr. Joe Chink. And I hope and pray that it helps some of the young, 'cause God knows they need it. Alright, y'all, thank you for helping out with the vibe on Volume 5 here on Ralph Reads. I would like, or rather love, to thank you, queens and kings, fellow royalty, for stopping by. If you would like to leave a small donation or connect with me on social media, please go to www.solo.to/RGMC2407. Go to YouTube, PayPal, Cash App, X, IG, Threads, Facebook group, or send an email to the Gmail at RGMC2407. Follow the Art of Bounce podcast via its own YouTube channel or wherever you stream your favorite podcasts, Amazon, Spotify, or Apple. Again, tell a friend to tune in to TURN, the United Ronin Networks. We are Ronin. Fellow royalty, pick up a good book, read a good story, and set your good self free. I appreciate you, and I love you like cooked food. I will see you folks on the next edition of this Andrew Stonewall Jackson miniseries on Ralph Reads. Stay vigilant, otherwise you will be looking ignorant.